we despise. You know, we can keep doing that as long as we want to. We can reform as much as we want, but we can't really go beyond the institutions that we hate anyway. So revolution, I think, is what we need.
Very well said.
Thank you. I did my best. I realized you were taping.
Personally, I think that we need a completely new system, which I guess would fall under revolution if
It's not sustainable.
if we just continue to reform, we're going to be trapped eventually. We're going to appease the government so much because they reformed. Like, oh, they're really helping us. They care. They're listening.
They're trying so hard.
Yeah, they're trying so hard, and then we're just going to get trapped and stuck. So I think we just need to just say, hey, you know, we succeed.
Yeah. We seem to be going in a circle. What do you think, Heather?
I would like to hear what you have to say first.
I feel like we've already reformed. We've already done that.
I'm not a supporter of structure,
but
a new structure
government
is
gives
much
us
better
these
than
little
structure
benefits
we've
and these
got.
little things, and we're supposed to take them, but it's not about the welfare or the food stamps. It's about
A revolution might happen.
millions of dollars as people embezzle from their companies and from the American citizens. So we do need to, I would say, revolt and completely take it down. And you know, that's where the question comes in: is what do we build in its place? And I don't know about that. I know that what is going on right now and what is happening is completely wrong, and citizens are being exploited by the state that's supposed to protect us and help us. And it's fucked up, so let's revolt about it. So pass another bill to ease the punishments of certain people.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Along with what you're saying, we can pretty much agree on the fact that nothing that we've tried so far worked. If it worked, we'd be doing it, right? So we have to find something completely new, some completely new way to do things, and I think that's why we need all these young 20-something college-age students who are pissed about shit, and the older people too who have all the experience.
Yeah, the wisdom to guide us.
Right, exactly. And if we can find a marriage between the two of them, rather than let's try something new, rather than let's do something we've tried before. This was successful in the 40s. Let's do it again now in 2011. I mean, obviously it's not going to work if it hasn't in the past.
And I feel like the definition of the word revolt means we're all going to strap bombs to a building or chain ourselves to a tree and never move. And it's not that. It's let's revolt and not pay our taxes so these people can suffer and feel like what it's not to have rent money or to not have food money or to not have any gas.
Yeah, dog, pound it.
And so, you know, it's just like quit feeding the cycle. It doesn't mean completely rip it apart and try and rebuild it. It's just make it stop and implode upon itself. That's why the people that are already out here sleeping on the steps
on the pavement
continue to sleep on these steps, and these people that are sleeping in water beds and flying in jets aren't going to have that shit anymore. So, you know, that's going to be their test, their time to see what happens to them. We've already kind of been dealing with this, being hungry every day, walking everywhere, and doing shit like that. So those misconceptions of that word revolt is very dumb.
Yeah, Lex said to me earlier, revolt always means something bloody. It's always a bloody revolt against something. Do you think that it has to be violent in order to be successful?
It can actually probably be a little bit more self-destructful if it's too violent. You just kill everyone, and then no one's going to want to hear your side because then you're going to think that you're a Genghis Khan or something. It's very tricky.
Yeah. So it's definitely. Do you think it's something that needs to include everybody, where everybody realizes that there's something that they're doing wrong or there's something that they need to change? Or do you think it can only be like the 99% or the 70% or the 25%, whatever it is, revolting? Do you think it needs to be just those, or it needs to be everybody saying shit needs to change?
Oh, it needs to be everybody.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen if it isn't?
then there'll be, I don't know, very complex half and half of the, well, I don't want to change what I already have, even though I know it's fucked up, but I can still go home to my freedoms, versus I'm tired of being like this, I'm being tired of told no by the police time and time again. I'm tired of being told no that I can't do these actions because it would be harmful to others around me or something. And it's like a personal choice, like skateboarding or something, you know?
Yeah, like I heard that the plaza up there got shut down because too many people were skateboarding at night. Or it's like, it's our plaza. How can you shut it down?
One concert there a year, and other than that, they don't just.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. What do you think, Heather?
I think this is interesting. This is something I've been kicking around in my head for a while, because I'm pretty committed to nonviolence. I mean, I don't know. In the moment, things happen. You don't know how it'll go down, but because of my spiritual beliefs, I'm pretty committed to nonviolence. Also because of my spiritual beliefs, and that it means that I must question, well then, if not revolution, what? Because I'm not really into like another bill also. And I do believe that incrementally you get satisfied if you get fed a crumb, and then it's stasis for a while until the next big move. I don't think that it's nothing has worked. I mean, we did have the civil rights movement, you know, and we have had improved conditions for women in this country and whatever. I think more what happens there is that it's not enough and it's too slow. And so there's too many casualties along the way of people having to live in unacceptable conditions. When you work within the system, there's that blocking over and over again. But I do think if you just tear it down, I mean, think of history and the times that things have gone down in flames. The same thing happens. There really wasn't a revolution. There was just a shift of power within the same structure. So I'm concerned that we need to get a little smarter and have a little more vision before we start revolting. And that's what I'm really interested in. Like you were saying, does this need to be everybody? And the idea that, well, yeah, I mean, if we're going to do this, we have to all agree to do that. Why should some of these people change? What on earth would convince them that they need to shift? And to me, and this is just sort of my personal little shtick that I always bring to this, I feel like a shift like this, a paradigmatic shift, a new way of looking at the way the universe is ordered in our place, and it has to come from in here. And you can't make anybody do that. I don't care how many people you kill, I don't care how much you reform or whatever. And so to me, it's almost like we need to move towards a spiritual revolution, that there's something even bigger that could happen here than we're talking about, because it's very difficult to talk about spiritual revolution or what that inside-out change would look like. Because like I said, you can't really force it. You can show things to people and see if they grow that or crack their hearts open and make them bigger, you know, if they're willing to do that. But that is something that how that happens, I don't know. And I'm really interested in that aspect along with the political, and that if we focus only on this really intense political conversation and leave out some of the other stuff, I don't know how far we're going to get, you know? And a lot of the environmental conversations, I think, really sort of bring more of that spirit, that consciousness into it. And I don't want to turn the whole thing into, like, you know, Heather's version of spirituality, anything like that. But I do think when we're talking about this kind of revolution, there's even another layer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of just watching, you know, I'm kind of just trying to get information and listen to people and learn if there's any way that I can play a role in that, on that layer, you know? So I'm just figuring things out like everybody else.
Hey, you pound it. I'm there.
So,
you go. You ask a question if you have a question.
so it seems that we all agree that there should be some sort of revolution, hopefully non-violent revolution. I like that. I definitely like that.
Yeah.
It seems that we all think that reform could be a type of appeasement because it doesn't happen fast enough.
You know, I think it's a possibility, but again, this would take so much savvy on our part. What if it works the other way? What if we were enough in control and took the power enough that we appeased the government, the government felt appeased as we went along, that we could take more than we perceive ourselves taking. You know, we're thinking of these little incremental steps they allow us to take. But maybe the system, maybe there can be some blend, and without everything having to get wonky in order to start over, which will happen. I mean, if the government is destroyed and there's nothing to take its place, and people aren't ready to take care of each
Just
other.
a heads up, it's been 10 minutes. Mic check.
Mic check.
It's been 10 minutes.
It's been 10 minutes.
If you guys would like another 5,
If you guys would like another 5,
see some twinkles.
let's see some twinkles.
All right, enjoy.
That brings me to I was panhandling today, and and somebody called the police saying that there was a 12-year-old boy with long brown braided hair that was trying to hitchhike. Me. And I got us talking with the police, and we started talking about Occupy, and he was like, yeah, but there's some people trying to break the law, some people trying to be in city parks after dark. And well, I said to him, isn't putting a limit on how long we can be in a city park just a violation of our right to peacefully assemble through city ordinance?
What did he say?
He said that you can peacefully assemble somewhere other than a park.
So it's not really public. It's only public from this time to that time.
No, it is public, but I feel like over and over again as Americans we've let people let their rights be taken away slowly by slowly, and those are one of the ones that I think that people just completely overlooked. Like, they didn't even think about it. Like, oh, of course the police can say we can't go into our park after dark.
Yeah, that's what I meant by it effectively not being public except between a certain time. Do you think there's any sort of, or at least originally in that thought, the idea that it's a safety issue?
I mean, it is a safety issue, but people die. It happens. Just because, the people die. If someone dies or someone gets hurt, it's not because that park is unsafe. It's because the government that you live in is unsafe.
What if there are creepy people hanging out in the park that are dangerous to you? And I would think more something like rape or beating than, which is different from if a whole bunch of people go in there and occupy together, then those people really don't have a place to be anymore. So it's kind of interesting that they're almost creating the space for those people to be there by not allowing everyone else to come and police that space themselves.
I think more often than not, it's not necessarily violence. It's just people who want to go somewhere at night to drink.
I think there's a lot of just inhabiting the city park, and I think a lot of those people don't have anywhere else to go.
And
I'm on a similar situation right now since I'm suddenly homeless, and so instead of finding places where I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to go there because people can't be disturbed, they're probably, I don't know, maybe raping somebody, maybe shooting up, whatever, I don't know. It's like, oh, since I won't be disturbed, maybe I'll go there for a couple of hours. It's kind of like, where do we draw the line between who are the dregs of society, like who we don't want to associate with, and who is society? We can't really draw the line, like, don't go out and drink on Franklin Street if you're a part of Occupy, because it'll come back and it'll kick Occupy in the ass, because, that's who we are too. We're the people who like getting drunk. Who doesn't like getting drunk?
I think there is a little difference with Occupy there, though, because this is everybody's living room. So if whatever you do reflects on me in my living room. This is a group effort. This is like a little commune we have going here. So anybody, and like it or not, the way we look to those folks out there, if we really want to connect, if we really want to communicate with them and make them see that it's not just all of us here, it's all of us over there too, then the fact is, stinky though it may be, that it does actually matter how we look. It does actually matter how we behave.
Yeah,
well, kind of.
We gotta stick with that, though.
I don't agree with it, though, because, I agree that it kind of matters how we look, but who gets to say, who gets to say, oh, well, you can't assemble here because you were drinking over there.
I think it depends on like how you behave.
I mean,
Yeah, well, I know you think that,
Like
but-
going back to how felons aren't supposed to vote, they're not allowed to vote in elections and stuff, and it's, you know, when you're like 6 years old, it's like, yeah, I don't want a murderer voting for my president, but then when you're actually old enough to vote, it's like, wait, these are people too.
Yeah.
This shit affects them also.
Yeah.
Why don't they have a right to vote for things?
Yeah, why is it that everybody gets sent to jail if somebody dies? Like, if somebody dies, someone has to go to jail? What's that about?
I don't know. That's some shit. I mean, I really think that we should get rid of things like you have to be buckled in or else it's against the law. Or like, I mean, we just need to get rid of that because people are gonna die. People are gonna do stupid shit, and we don't need to find blame when people just do stupid shit.
Yeah, that's what I meant by, like, people die. Like, when, like, a lot of lakes and stuff, they've closed it down because one or two people have died, you know, doing something stupid. They're stupid people. They died because they're stupid.
There is a sense of hyper vigilance about safety when to some extent it's just sort of natural selection.
Yeah.
You know, although I do think there's plenty of tragedies that happen and it really wasn't the person's fault, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's all. I mean, I do think that's like government. I think there might be moments when that actually comes from good intentions, that they feel like, oh, people are unsafe.
But there's still...
We have the ability to do something about that. But it doesn't mean that it's the best way to handle it.
Yeah.
On the getting buckled in thing, the reason that you have to be buckled in is because the insurance companies didn't want to pay out on all the premiums. So that was essentially, it's another like perfect thing that Occupy is trying to address as far as like corporate and governmental incestuous relations. It's the kind of thing where they had the lobbyists to push through the fact that seatbelts and helmets for motorcycles and things like that are mandatory because they didn't want to keep paying out of pocket if people weren't getting buckled. So it's like, in that case, it's not about caring about your safety, it's about caring about the bottom line.
Oh damn!
And that's like-
Yeah, that's some terrible stuff that shouldn't happen.
Sorry, I just overheard. And
No, I'm glad that you joined in.
When you said that one, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much your choice, whether you want to be buckled in or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've actually got to go to court on Friday.
Were you not buckled in?
I wasn't buckled in.
Buckled in. It was a couple people in my backseat.
A couple? How many people were in your backseat?
4. You know, whatever. I mean, it's still. We were all adults. We were all consenting. It's good.
Yeah.
About time, if you guys could just kind of wrap things up, that would be great.
We definitely got off the topic.
I would not resolved it pretty well.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
that was still about issues of, you know, control and what those are all system-related things.
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
were just talking about. So,
Yeah. I think most people are gonna be along the same lines as we were, but it's really interesting.
I'm very curious to see.
It'll be very interesting to see.
I'm interested to see all kinds of things. Does it fall? Are there going to be like social determiners? Are there going to be generation determiners? Are there going to be, you know, like, or if it's pretty much just shook up all across
Have
the
you
board?
studied sociology?
No, but I do. I am overeducated. So.
Overeducated.
Overeducated. I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I don't know what I feel. I feel like that group's really big.
Yeah, and they're having like a campfire.
check!
there.
Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
That's time!
That's time!
So I'll now turn it over to Steve.
So now turn it over to Steve.
Actually, sorry, no.
No.
I still have things to do. Okay. So, if we could reconvene as a large group, that would be awesome. Do you have a marker?
They're repeating.
We have forgotten how to use the people's mic.
We have forgotten how to use the people's mic. Apparently.
Daniel, can you toss? Oh, never mind.
We have 3 people viewing
Okay.
us and they won't talk to me.
So, the way we will proceed now is whoever was taking notes, or I guess if somebody else wants to read the notes from your group, would share, I guess, just the general overview, preferably without getting into too much detail. If you want to give me the notes at the end of tonight's meeting, I would be happy to type them up and submit them as an addendum
to the regular notes from tonight. But for the purposes of this discussion, basically we're going to be making bullet points on what everybody discussed, see what the similarities and differences are. So if somebody would like to go and present on what their group discussed. Anyone?
Yay!
Okay. So our notes are, the first person said that the existence of little nodes of Occupy are important, that changes with individuals that we encounter happen that way. We're still formative, and having no clear agenda is unifying. We can break off to work on things later as long as we agree on the problem now. The second person said we need to reclaim democracy, that the revolution is within people, that reform will happen fast as individuals change, that we've talked a lot about people valuing individuals over money, and that the important part of reform is establishing ties in community. The third person said they're worried about reform versus revolution as a question. Reform could go far enough for us to lose momentum, but not bring about needed changes. We could hope and work for reforms, but prepare for revolutions. Efforts can meet with violent opposition, no reforms and we'll oppress you, get reforms, tiny concessions to appease us, or significant change that just puts us back 20 or 30 years and then we do it all again 20, 30 years from now. And then they would like to see a GA happen once a week now and for forever to keep us participatory. The fourth person said, social movements have to have a revolutionary arm to make reforms even look reasonable. We need to continue to include all perspectives and be open to a revolutionary critique of democracy as a whole. And then we continue to talk about, accepting everyone within the whole, the effect on individuals, and the need to have a broad focus. We're occupied.
We decided to collectively respond to
yeah, sure.
Oh, and I'm Diane.
Joey. What I felt like we kind of came to was the idea of reform towards revolution.
Why you want revolution?
I just think that people, as the human race, we are an adaptive people, and without a revolution every so often we stop adapting, we become sedentary, and we just sink deeper into cycles of destruction that are gonna fuck us in the end. Yeah, just every now and then there has to be some kind of big change to keep people interested, to keep people motivated, to keep people trying to progress to something else that's better, because there's always room for improvement. And if you're not trying to improve, then what are you really trying to do?
And we also talked about, in the pro-revolution side, that so much of trying to reform things, even if you got rid of like everyone who was inside the structure now, and just put different people in, maybe different colors, different genders, different whatever, they would still be in the same structures that were fucked up. And so this need for some sort of upheaval. But I also want to represent that we had Clay, who was here the other night and who ran for city council and very much believes in reform and the sort of these steps that need to be taken, and that we have tools to work with that can improve things on a sort of more day-to-day basis right now, and that can be important. Then we also pushed on the questions, well, what would those reforms be? And so something like campaign finance came up. And then we were like, well, what would it actually take to put in a campaign finance law? Because you are sticking your finger in the wound of where power is. Maybe reform is going to take a structural change, like something more revolutionary. So we got stuck at that point in the dialectic.
And that's pretty much where we stayed.
Right.
Our group was kind of split between a majority of revolutionaries and a minority of reformists. I think the reformists had some anxiety about revolution being kind of having a propensity towards violence, and that it might not be a good place to start. The people who were for revolution didn't have a lot of faith that we'd be able to fix these, again, systematic problems within the context of the system, that, you know, it's so broken or it's so malicious that us trying to work within it will just not be productive. We spent a little bit of time talking about what revolution is, that it's really creating a new world. We also discussed, I think, environmentalism was kind of a theme in our conversation, talking about the difference between green reforms and green revolution, that it would take to really save the earth. At this point, will take a complete change in mindset from, you know, moving away from just not doing the wrong things to actually doing the right things, which would pretty much be a revolution. Is that, y'all feel like that's accurate? That was pretty much it then.
So our group, we started pretty vague. It was a pretty vague question. We started pretty vague. It was a pretty vague question. Then we eventually realized that we each had very different definitions of the two words. And so we went around and started talking a little bit about what our definitions were. And we came up with something that was very interesting. A lot of us interweaved revolution and reform together. And that a lot of us said that there has to be a reform, but it must be revolutionary. There has to be something that is not thought of before within the structures that we have right now, because there are some aspects that are oppressive. Another idea was that reform must be on a revolutionary scale. It must be large, and it must be in charge, I guess. And it must encompass many different specifics. That it's very easy to get involved with, like, this is a reformist thing, this is a revolutionist thing, but what we actually have to do is pick apart what specifically is the problem, and from the structures to be able to reform that on a large scale. Another thought that popped up as we were defining revolution and reform was that I was talking about what David was talking at the beginning, that semantics really can lead to dividing us as opposed to bringing us together, even though we have very similar views. Like, I brought up a topic about talking to Wall Street investors about this problem. I was a social worker last year, and I talked to them about the problems, and they're like, that's horrible, man. Like, I don't agree with that at all. The type of things the types of struggles that you're going through, financial struggles, lack of manpower, in order to give these people the type of attention that they need. And it was interesting because that's something that you would obviously never realize would be an idea that would be popping around their head. So we were thinking a lot about how the Occupy movement really comes in with this reform versus revolution. What we talked about was that this could be a space where two completely different people can come together and revolutionize the way that we think about things, and that we can redefine many different things, and in that process go out and reform the system in a way that is revolutionary and very large and encompassing. So that was one. Then last thought that that changes take time. Right now, changes are starting to go faster as information is being exchanged at a fast rate. So I guess we got stopped right there, but to kind of extend that, maybe that we as the people should be able to outreach and be able to, take that change into our own hands and start to talk about this with other people so that we can revolutionize and reform together.
Thank you. Our group couldn't avoid playing with semantics a little bit too. I think it's kind of hard not to get into it. Oh, okay. Yeah. So our group couldn't avoid getting into the whole, like, what is revolution actually, what does it actually mean for all of us? That definitely was a real concern. And I think we consider that revolution can sometimes be a non-violent thing. It can sometimes, there are peaceful examples of it. We consider that revolt is different than revolution. Revolt is often more aggressive of an act. And we considered that revolution's definition most commonly agreed on would just be something about like a total change in government. But then the question is, a total change in government, is that dismantling of the entire, like, is it just going and changing Congress and how that works, or is it changing the entire system? And I don't think there's any clear answer on that. But we figured that reformations are a great start to a revolution no matter what. Like, reform will always make a good climate for revolution. So if you have some solid reforms you push on beforehand, while that may not make us all go away if we get those things, and I don't think we would go away, we would still be closer to an actual big change. And so to not push on those would maybe be a mistake. We talked about how in Egypt, we talked about inclusion of armed forces and police in the 99% for any kind of revolutionary climate, and how in Egypt some military people put down their weapons and wouldn't harm us, and that's something to consider for revolutionary tactics. We talked about possible very specific reform with Citizens United as like a first reform to just push on to end corporate personhood or to end the ability for money to be free speech in politics, and how if we succeeded in that, we would be a lot closer to being able to influence government in a reform way that would actually get things done. We talked about, well, we also had the idea of corporate personhood should maybe be increased so they could be jailed and treated like the sociopaths they are. It's another possibility. We also were worried that the word revolution has some stigma, that we love the idea, all of us, but we hate the word because it's something that pushes a lot of people away. Like whose revolution is this, and how can we trust the revolutionaries to make anything better? I mean, is it just, it sounds like in the image it evokes for a lot of people is an alienating image, and unless we can reach out to them and explain what we mean, we're just going to push people away with it. Someone brought up the idea of Reformation being evoking Martin Luther's nailing up the theses on the door of the church, and how we can maybe go to the White House and go all around and nail up our own list of demands or visions in the same way. We also thought, somebody also said that there's no true utopia. We have to remind ourselves about human nature. And we're more like, we need strong yeast to make strong bread. We need to grow. We can't go and just imagine it's going to be perfect. And we talked about having new people in politics, new people in power. Just get everybody in there right now is too entrenched. There's no reaching them. It's already the same power players that have been around since forever. So as long as they're there, we're going to have a lot of obstacles.
Thank you. Any other groups?
There's us. I think we pretty much fell down on the side of revolution. Oh, really? For me?
It's like I can hear you, but I'm having to work hard to do it.
Okay. We pretty much as a group fell down on the side of revolution, although there was discussion about what would revolution look like. We were pretty suspicious of reform because of that whole bugaboo thing about you get these incremental steps and it's easy to go, oh, thank you, and get appeased by what we managed to get. And unless we're clever enough to somehow shift that power so they're the ones getting appeased, I mean, if there's not some, if we could somehow take that power back and manipulate the situation that much, that would be pretty revolutionary. I don't know how that would happen, but there were several, we discussed that a little bit. We also talked about the idea that when you do revolutionize, then what do you fill the space with, and the idea that do you fill the same structures, do you get rid of some of them, do you build from the ground up, and the dangers of that historically is that you pretty much get the same people who fight their way to the top and still run things, and then that led to, and I admit, it's my shtick, because I always bring this up. The idea of this kind of revolution is going to happen, this political revolution, this tangible revolution, then the revolution really has to be inside. Why should some people give a damn? I mean, why should those people on top want to change things? The only way that could happen, other than being forced, is that something shifts here, and that underlies everything. We agreed that the environmental aspects of Occupy sometimes included that sort of speech, that there needed to be a broader shift from within. Again, how that happens, don't know. It was just another layer of revolution that we were considering. Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay.